Hi everyone, it's Tamara here with another card making tutorial. This time I'm going to be doing a highlighted scene card to create a nice spotlight at the back for our image to stand at the front. So there will be a little bit of masking involved as well as some Copic colouring and card assembly. So the products I'll be using today are the Christmas tree farm from My Favourite Things. I know obviously they've closed down, so getting this stamp set may be hard if you don't have it already, but I'm sure that you'd be able to utilise another stamp set in your stash to use, as well as this Scalloped Inverted Circle Die. Again, I'm not 100% sure where this came from, but I'm sure you've got something in your stash that would work. I've grabbed out a scrap piece of Copic XPress at Cardstock, just big enough for my little fox and his tree to go in there, and attach that to the front of the Misti door. And just stamp that up with my Memento Truxedo black ink, which is great for Copic colouring. So give that a bit of a press, and we've got a really nice impression with that. So now we'll grab another piece of scrap Copic XPress it, and I'm just going to use my pencil to draw a circle around our little scalloped frame that we'll be using. And now we know that that's the area that we need to stamp all of our images in for our centered scene. I've got that back in our Misti, and I'm just going to get our tree, the first tree. So this is the one that will be at the front. So everything that is going to be in the front of the scene needs to be stamped first, and then we'll mask that up, and then we can stamp the other images that go behind them. So again, I'm using my Memento ink and give that a good press down. And while we've got those stamps still in our Misti, I'm just going to grab out my Crafter's Companion masket paper and just get this lined up in our Misti and stamp our actual masks for our image. So I'm just lining that up, making sure that I've got enough space for them to be stamped on. You don't need a huge amount of ink because obviously we're just needing enough to fussy cut around to use as a mask. So I'm just very rough putting that down. So I fussy cut them off camera, and now we'll just line them up on the front of our image panel so that we can stamp the other trees that come behind. So now attach our little sign mask, and we're ready to get our other trees popped in. So I've just lined that one up, kind of pushed up a little bit further and to the back of our front tree. So it looks like there's a lot of Christmas trees ready to be picked up by people that want them for home. So now we'll just add our second one in there again, just kind of push back up a bit higher so that it's just a little bit back from our front tree. And we'll give that another stamp up. Now I do want one behind, so I'm going to pop a couple of masks on these trees as well, which I did off camera. So we'll line this one up as well, and then we'll get our final tree that's going to be just sitting in the back of our scene stamped in there. So I'm going to just line that up and attach it to our Misti door, and we'll just give that a stamp. We don't need to worry about the bottom of that one because that's kind of hidden behind our other trees. Now we'll peel off the masks, and then you'll see our little scene revealed. So our front one is our final one and our little Christmas tree sign, and we've got our scene ready for colouring. So because this is quite a small image, I'm just going to go straight in with my darkest colours and not put any kind of shadows in with my lightest colours for today. I'm going to have the sun kind of shining the top right hand corner because obviously all the trees will be in shadow. But before I actually get started, I decided I wanted to get my actual sky coloured in so I know where my horizon line will be. So I'm just got my pen on the side so that I'm getting a nice even layer of that colour with the side of that pen nib. So now I'm going in with my B01. So this is going to be my darkest colour for my sky. So it's a beautiful, clear, crisp winter's day. So we've got a nice, beautiful blue sky. So B00 is our middle marker, and we'll bring that B000 back in to blend that out for our sky. Now we'll get started back on that ground. So our initial darkest colour, which is our shadow colour, is the E47. And now we're going to blend that out with the E44, just extending out where those shadows will be thrown from the trees and also from the sign. Our next color is E43. Now I will have all the colors just shown up in the top left hand corner of our video. So the next color is our E42, so I'm slightly blending that out. And I'm going to be adding some greens in here as well, so like there's a little bit of grass growing in, but there's a path and some dirt around where all the trees are stored. So BG99 was our darkest color. The next one, as I slowly work out, is BG96 and YG07 to blend that out, slowly working up to that horizon line, and YG05, and then we're going to bring in YG03 to get that blended out. So that's going to be our color combination for our grass. So I'm just going to go back in and repeat that so that we get a nice smooth blend between our dirt and our grass. So I've gone back in with that E47. Just extend that shadow out with our E44 and now E43. Obviously it could be further in shadow with these trees, but we do want to create a little bit of contrast, so that's why I'm not fully colouring it quite dark underneath the trees. E42 is next, that's our final blend, so I'm kind of working that into that grass as well so that we do get a nice smooth transition between our colours. And I only went in with the B96. I didn't worry about the darkest color because that was really showing through. So now I'm just going through with those YG markers to fully blend that out. And then we'll bring in that YG03 again as our final color and slowly blend that into that dirt area. So that's our ground done. Now we'll get our little sign colored up. Now obviously there's already lines on our image because it comes with the stamp. So I'm not going to be worrying about doing lines today, and the same with these little trunks of the trees. So I'm just going to bring in 3 colors to blend these out. So I'm just kind of keeping my shadows at the either end of the tree because we want the Christmas tree sign showing there. And then our lightest color in this combo is going to be our E53. So I thought just to make it nice and simple, we'll keep the sign and the trunks the same color. Now we're going to get started with our trees. So again, because of how small these are, I'm just going to go straight in with our darkest marker and just doing little flicking motions like pine needles. I'm going to just do some flicking motions with our G29. I'm only going to show you the coloring of one tree because each of them I did exactly the same. So now I'm extending those little strokes out with my G46. So obviously each kind of level of the pine tree will be throwing a little bit of shadow, as well as the very base of the tree will be in shadow as well. So G43 is the next one in our combo, and then our final color is G40 to fully blend that out. But I wanted to make sure that we've got some nice contrast, so I'm going to go back in again with those colors. With the G29 as our shadow color, just reinforcing our first layer that we did. And then we'll flick out with the G46, just doing that little flicking motion, so just try and raise it as you flick down or up to try and get a nice sharp edge on your little pine needles. So flicking down and back up again. And fully finish that blend with our G40. So you just see I'm just doing a quick rough because you want to make it look as kind of rough and rugged as possible, being a pine tree. Now we'll start colouring up our little image of our fox carrying his Christmas tree that he's picked. And I'm going to do exact colouring of the tree that I did for the other scene that we have done. So same colours for that, and also for the branches or for the kind of pine needle leaves. So flicking down, and there were a couple of little sections that you'll see that I've just added them in, that the artist has actually drawn some lines in that foliage down the bottom. So I popped a few of the darker lines to reinforce those little artist flicks. And we'll flick back up So you can see that I like raise my pen as I get to that white cardstock to get a nice fine kind of line, and follow it back and forth in the way that I am colouring. So that final colour is the G40 to finish off our green tree blend. And as I did before, I just wanted to create that little bit of extra colour. So I'm going back in with the exact colour scheme again to reinforce our shadows and light areas. Just extending with the G46 into our highlight and flicking up. And so you don't have to be perfect. Sometimes it's better to actually be a little bit rough with this. Same with fur, just it gives it a more natural look without trying to be perfect. And now we'll flick down with our final colour just to ensure that we've got a nice blend there with our G40. And that's the tree done. And now we're going to get started on our little fox. So our colour is going to be Y27 to pop our shadows in. So I'm going to keep his little belly and face a lighter colour. So we'll just finish that off. Our next colour in this combo is YR07, just slowly flicking into our highlight. So kind of at the back, again, he's kind of in the same direction as what our little bunch of trees were, so top right hand corner. So everything kind of will be in shadow at the back, as well as where his arm folds over at the bottom, and where that little scarf goes, and where that tree is kind of sitting over his leg there as well. The next colour is Y12 to finish off our orangey blend for our fox. Wanted to make him nice and bright against that green tree. So that's our colouring done of our main portion of the fox, but I wanted to do his tail the same colour as his fur. So again, I've popped the shadow down the bottom where it will be most in shadow, and the light will be catching the very top of that tail. So then we'll bring in our YR12 to finish off that highlight. With his face, I'm just going to do some warm greys, but you can use whatever greys that you have, but you just want the lighter greys because we want to make sure that his fur on his face and chest still looks white. So I'm going to leave quite a bit of white cardstock here, but we do want to pop a shadow in. So I'm going to blend that out now, but not go fully across, but lighten my hand as I get to that white cardstock. And we will add a little bit of pink to his cheeks because it is a chilly winter day. Blend that out with the R00, and then we'll bring in that lightest marker of the W's, Y00, to get a nice smooth blend out of those rosy cheeks. Now I did forget his little ears here, so I'm just going to use a couple of colours to pop that colour on his ears because they are quite small. There's not a lot of space. So I forgo the YR14 and just went in with the highlight YR12 because of just how small they were. And we'll just use the same markers we use for the rosy cheeks for the inside of that ear. Now to keep it simple and not be grabbing out a number of markers, and also to ensure that the colours all match in really well with each other, I'm going to use the same colours on his hat as I did on that tree. So that G29 was our darkest marker. We'll blend that out with the G46. But you can really use any markers that you've got in your stash to do this if you don't have the same markers that I have. So we'll just add the G43 and then make sure we're keeping a little bit of space for that highlight colour, the G40. So you could just do a 3-colour combo, but I managed to squeeze in that 4-colour. And for his little pom-pom, I'm going to make that the same kind of colour as his fur on his face and chest, but just do some dotting motions to make it look like it's a nice fluffy dome on his little hat. And keeping that darkness on the left and lightness on the right. And now just to offset that green, I'm going to do a nice deep red colour for his scarf, and I thought that will go quite well with his fur as well. And then I'm just going to do the opposite little lines on his hat in that same red color as well. So I'll do that exactly the same time. So blend that R89 out with the R29. Go now in with the R27. This is one of my favorite red combos. And don't forget that little lines on his hat. This is a very Christmassy type coloring for me. I just love that whole red and green Christmas feel. And we'll finish off with the R24 as our highlight color for his scarf and hat. Now for our front panel, I'm going to cut out a stitched rectangle border. So I've just cut a bit of white cardstock a little bit bigger than what I needed and run that through my die cutting machine. Now I've also grabbed out a circle die that just fits perfectly around our scalloped insert die. I'm just going to line that up to make sure that we've got enough room for our sentiment and our little fox to sit on the front. Make sure that's centered on either side, and grab out my purple tape to hold that in place. So grab out my T-ruler, make sure that that's even on both sides, which it is, and I've run that through my die cutting machine now. Now to cut out this frame, my tape got a little bit stuck there. My machine's kind of really pressing down quite hard sometimes. So now I've got that loose. I'm going to grab our scallop die and just center that in that circle that's been cut out by our circle die. And again, run this through my die cutting machine. And now we've got our inserted scallop die for our picture. And it's just going to, you could just leave it plain, just with that circle over the top. But I just wanted to add that little bit of extra interest with that scallop die. So I just needed to trim that back panel up a little bit to make sure that none of the cardstock was showing at the top of our card front. And now I'm going to pop our little image and panel into our Misti and work out where that sentiment needs to sit. So I'm sorry, I'm a little bit out of camera for a part of that. So I'm just lining that up, grab out my T-ruler and just make sure this is centered and I just moved it, centered to the middle of our panel, and it just needed to go over just a little bit. We'll attach that to the front of the Misti and make sure we get our little fox out of the way so he doesn't get any ink on him when we stamp up. Initially I was going to use some black ink to stamp up the image, but I thought it'd be nice to utilize this green tea Versacolor ink to match them with all the greens that appear in both our image and also our little circle panel, our scene setting. So I'm giving that a few stamps up to get a nice clear impression, and we'll set that panel aside to dry. So now that's dry, I'm going to get this attached. Now we just need to go around the outside of our image panel, just making sure we've got enough glue that will stay hidden behind this circle. Line that up and wiggle that in place. Once I'm happy with the position, we'll give that a good press down, and then we'll grab out our little scalloped insert and we'll get some glue on that. I'm just using my precision glue tool for this, just putting little dots all the way around that little scallop opening. And once I've got that all attached on there, so you can see me just getting a little bit of glue around the edge to make sure that attaches nicely to our little image. So we'll line that up and pop that inside and make sure that that's nice and centered. Now again, I've grabbed some green cardstock to keep it incorporated with the greens that we've got in our scene. And because we've got that kind of little raised panel there, I've just got out my score tape and I'm just going to get that attached to the back of the panel, just using my block to cut that to size. And then we'll grab out my bone folder and just make sure that that's nice and well adhered to that card panel. Pull off the release paper. So doing that with the Teflon bone folder really helps you to be able to lift up that score tape, release paper. And once that's all taken off, I'm just going to stand up so that I can see that I'm lining up this so it's even on all sides with that nice green border to match in with our green trees and grass. So I'm giving that a good press down, grab out that bone folder again and just make sure that's really well adhered and pressed down. Now, to make sure our little fox image is the highlight of this scene, I'm going to prop him up with a little bit of foam tape. So I'm just going to cut a little bit to size. Just make sure I put a little bit of down that end to keep that tree supported. Now I'm just using my little pick because this is a little bit hard to pull up, this release paper. So I just kind of give it a little bit of a push under to make sure we get a nice edge up and pull that off. So I did the rest off camera because you don't need to see me doing that. Now I wanted to make sure that little foot is straight where he's walking. Line him up so he's just kind of offset from that scene. So it looks like he's walking away after grabbing his Christmas tree, and give that a good press down. And this is the finished card for this tutorial. This is such an adorable set, and I love actually making this little kind of Christmas tree area scene for our little fox to go in and buy his Christmas tree and take it away. And it comes with some lovely sentiments, which I've used one of them for this card as well. I hope you've enjoyed this card making tutorial. If you have, please hit the like button. And if you'd like to see any future videos, make sure to hit the subscribe button. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day. Bye.